right, welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road where we are joined by the one and only Steve Bassett. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
Good to be with you, my friend.
This is an exciting time. We have yet another UFO hearing in Congress coming up. Well, what are your thoughts about that? Now, a lot of people are disappointed because we don't seem to have the participants of the programs that we were promised, at least that have been told to us. What is your take on all of this? And hopefully this will be a deep dive because I really want to get your thoughts.
Well, first of all, the level of anticipation on this issue has never been bigger. That's great. It means that people are uh, getting more involved. They're speaking up. They're doing podcasts, whatever. The downside of that is that we're 80 years in now, uh, when the government learned that we're not alone. That's 8 decades, and if the magenta event of 33 is true, then maybe even a lot sooner, though until we got it in our possessions, we may not have known if that craft was of non-human origin. So, but 47 is great. We'll just go with that. Yeah, the Roswell, which is that crash and that event has been researched like no other. Hundreds of witnesses. There is zero doubt in my mind that it wasn't exactly as it was portrayed in the major research, certainly by Schmidt, Carey, and so forth. So, 80 years. And the government has played a good game, a strong game, and done a lot of things to keep this thing classified, keep it out from the public arena, and denying it's true, thus creating an enormous amount of frustration. So now, as we get close, everybody wants it now. They want it. They expect the next thing to do it. I understand that, but they don't know the history as well. So if they did, they would realize what's happening now is practically warp speed. So in 7 years, we've covered an enormous amount of territory and established a sufficient platform for a president, hopefully our president, to come forward and just end this, and then open up the entire small d disclosure process, take it to another level, which will lead to the public learning a great deal about the history of this and what the government knows. But that small d disclosure, capital D is what I'm in dealing with, and that's the confirmation by the president or the head of state. So there's a lot of, and everything is scrutinized now. Everything that comes out getting picked apart, uh, because now we're in the age of podcast and social media with X dominating here. So again, that's good. Everything that happens is picked apart, looked at, analyzed, criticized. Uh, that wasn't the way it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, I assure you. And the government knows this. They see it. They see the amount of attention being paid to it as enormous. And the idea that they're going to be able to really manipulate the entire uh, internet presence on this issue, as well as the media, prevent the endless stream of people now going on podcasts, many of which are witnesses. They can't. And so they basically know it's over. It's just a matter of how can they delay it? Maybe so it's at the right time for them or convenient, whatever. But it's over. I mean, they've lost this one. So right now, where we are is pretty good. And you mentioned the latest hearing. Well, that's been announced, but it hasn't been formally confirmed, but it has been announced on X, which is where things are now formally confirmed, I assume. I've not seen anything from the actual committee or the task force, rather, but it looks real good. The 9th of September will be the third, what we'll call robust hearing, right? You've got the Grush hearing, then later you've got the hearing with Elizondo and Schnellenberger, Gold, and so forth, Gallaudet. You have and then this will be the third one. Now there have been a number of other smaller hearings where one or two people come in to update, both in the Senate and the House, but they're technically hearings, so the total number is probably around 9 or 10. Prior to that, in the previous 70 years, there were two.
Right.
67, 66, 68. They didn't amount to much. They didn't last very long. The film record, I think, is completely gone. Now you've got the written transcript, and that's it in 70 years. And now since then, eight. Okay, now we've had the four pieces of legislation, in which the major piece is being resubmitted. and will be voted on in the Senate in September. That's the UAP Disclosure Act in full, which was submitted and did not get through reconciliation, got cut in half, then submitted in full again the next year as an amendment, but the amendment got pulled because under the amendment rules, certain people, I think, chairmen of certain committees could block it, powers of the Senate. And knowing it was blocked, they pulled it. And then they've turned around and resubmitted it again in full. I don't know how strong a message certainly the Senate can be sending, Schumer, Rounds, and so forth, than that. And so that bill will almost certainly be passed by the Senate in the first week of September, maybe just prior to or after the September 9th hearing in the House Task Force, UAP Secrets Task Force. And then it'll go to the House, and sometime around mid-September, it may get an up or down vote in the House. Why? Because it has at least one sponsor, I believe, uh, Eric Burleson, Representative Burleson, and I talked to a couple offices trying to get a co-sponsor. We'll see, but another co-sponsor would be nice, particularly a Democrat. And that sets the stage for possibly getting an up or down vote in the House, which we haven't had. Why is a co-sponsor important or sponsor is important? In order for the thing to get to the vote, you got to have sign off from the um, Speaker of the House. And if you don't have a co-sponsor, you don't get it. And so it's going to go into reconciliation before it gets to the House. So, but with a sponsor, it's possible they may agree to give it an up or down vote, and that would be extremely significant. Why? Because it means that everyone in the House will have to vote on this bill, and we'll know exactly who voted no and who voted yes. Um, and frankly, it could pass because this is a nonpartisan bill by and large and a nonpartisan issue. In which case, the UAP Disclosure Act will go into effect, be signed later this year, a major accomplishment. But that's in the works. It's going to generate a lot of press. So as we approach the September, it's a watershed month without question. And I hope to be at that hearing. I'll be in the room, and whatever else I can do to certainly inform the people on this. And I have about 10 podcasts already set up. I'll probably do 20 in September. Now, there's this one problem. Uh, the ocean that this how would you say ship of activism is sailing is now under hurricane warning again with 20 and 30-foot seas. It just seems like every time we get close, that happens. I don't think it's deliberate. It's just the way it goes. And so we're in an extremely complex, tense situation right now in the country, but now in Washington, D.C. So as the UAP Disclosure Act gets brought again forward consideration, as the hearing is going to take place in about 12 days, there will be 2,000 National Guardsmen, and any or all of which can be armed now in DC, patrolling the streets in shifts, not all 2,000 at once, but shifts. I don't know, maybe 500 a shift, in addition to the police. That's I don't think has ever happened before. I think there's been some deployments, but this is a first, and it's a big deal. It is a really big deal. So that is starting to create various issues and what have you. The most notable thing that's happened is somebody got pissed off and I think maybe had a few drinks and slammed a Subway sandwich into the chest armor of one of the police people. Then he made the mistake of running. He shouldn't have done that. He should have stood his ground and said, well, that's what I had to do and I did it and, cuff me. But no, he ran off as if he had just hit a baseball through his neighbor's window. Of course, they ran him down. He gave it a pretty good run. And then he was charged shortly thereafter and arrested by 20 members of the either I think the police force and or the National Guard,
That's a
whatever,
lot of members.
under an indictment for assault, federal assault, charge a federal felony assault. He could get
Assault
10
with
years.
sandwich. I wonder
Assault
what
by sandwich. That's funny, but it's not funny. he has become a meme. He will become viral. He is going to be a big deal. There are already quite a few postings here and there about where's the GoFundMe, where's the GoFundMe. He's going to get a GoFundMe. He lost his job. He's not that old. I think he has a family, but I'm not positive. But he gave up, his job and maybe interrupted his career for years and years because he just couldn't take it anymore. And he fired off that sub. So he's gonna be famous. However, let me be clear. If somebody throws something heavier than a Subway sandwich, let's say brick, and hits anybody in any of the police or the guard, God knows if anybody fires any shots, and even worse, if anybody gets hit, and I say hit, I mean in the guard and the police that are now patrolling the streets. I'm about 80% confident that the president will declare martial law in Washington, D.C., and that will then be a really big deal. In addition, he is talking about moving directly into Chicago, and they are forming or putting plans in to send guard into 19 states. Now, I am speaking at this nonpartisan. I have been pretty good for 30 years remaining nonpartisan in this issue. I don't sell it on the basis of one party or another, and I'm not going to start now. But that is what is happening. All right. And this kind of unprecedented uh, domestic uh, upheaval or whatever isn't going to make it easier to get this issue continue moving forward. And in addition to that, we're at a crisis point in Ukraine and that war there. And I say crisis point, what I really mean is a milestone time. There's a potential that it might move away from where it's at. It could get a ceasefire. So and that's a big deal. It's huge. And then in Gaza, the situation just continues to be a 24-hour ongoing tragedy. And so you've got all of that. And so these efforts are competing with that and have always been competing with these kinds of issues, but now they're literally competing with the status of Washington, D.C. itself. Now, with that in mind, uh, this issue has been through a lot in the last 80 years and a hell of a lot in the last seven, and yet it has made steady progress. Greater media coverage, massive engagement by the social media, particularly X. After that, I think maybe some TikTok and Instagram. The new blue sky just doesn't have enough people in it, I think, to really have much impact. But X definitely, you can literally follow this thing in real time if you've got a lot of you're following a lot of accounts, the right accounts on X, and I'm on it every single day. And we've made all that progress in spite of the fact of everything that's happened. The political upheaval, uh, the, the hyper partisan attacks, and all of that stuff. Why? Because this is the most nonpartisan issue on the planet. It's almost impossible to politicize this thing. And so it is a nonpartisan issue that can be treated in a bipartisan way, which it has been, though the Democrats are a little behind the curve. They could pick it up a little bit. And that has kept it moving. And I think increasingly, both the public and the politicians and others are seeing it as like a safe space, meaning we're going to try to cut each other's throat on almost everything else, but on this issue, we can kind of get together, chat, talk, not hate each other. It's a safe space, and they're hanging out in it because hey, it's nice to be able to sit down with a member of the other party and not be contemplating how you could possibly,
Screw them
do
over.
something harm to them. So that's kind of the status quo right now.
All right. Well, thank you for giving us that rundown. Now, about that, why is it that Democrats have been kind of taking a back seat lately? I mean, originally we had, outspoken Democrats, Kirsten Gillibrand, Chuck Schumer started the whole thing in the Senate. Not Rubio, but Garcia has been pretty consistent in the House, still talking about this stuff, but they have been much quieter than the outspoken Republicans. We have people like Anna Paulina Luna and Eric Burleson and now leading the charge on all of this, which is really interesting. I mean, Eric is publicly he doesn't even believe in aliens, but he's going to presentations about the Boogosphere. He's handling the Nazca mummies, and he's talking about all this stuff. What is going on, and why is that partisan? What is that?
First of all, it's not much. In other words, the the Republicans, right, are leading on it, and the Democrats are to some degree following. So it's not that they're not in it; they're just not quite in it with the same level of engagement. But it's not the gap is not huge. Initially, you've got the legislation coming out of the Senate, and that was pretty much obviously bipartisan. You got Ruby and then Gillibrand, and then Rounds hooked up with Schumer. So the Senate kind of pretty much on the same par, all right, with Schumer and Rounds absolutely in the forefront because they have shepherded the legislation that will be utilized, ultimately, it's going to get passed, to get everything out to the public in the post-disclosure world, the post-capital D disclosure world, after confirmation. It'll get passed probably before disclosure takes place, and there will be some movement, but the amount and the potential and the spectrum of things that could come forward will be far, far less. But still, there'll be movement. There's already been some things that have been transferred under the original limited bill into the National Archives, and they have a UAP section there, and you can go see some of it, but it's not going to rock your world. So, but in the House, the Democrats got out in front. I mean, the Republicans got out in front quickly. Now, one of the reasons for that may be this. Again, there's a huge difference between the Senate and the House. In the House, you're elected every 2 years, Senate every six. And so a senator stepping into something, he could be facing election in 2, 4, 6 years. And depending on that, obviously they have a lot more, how would you say, latitude, a little less political concern. Whereas in the House, not so much. I mean, you're virtually campaigning the day after you take office after the election. But the Republicans, of course, they control the House. They have the White House, and so they're kind of in the catbird seat. And so I think they're just more comfortable coming in, right? Whereas the Democrats were really focusing on how do we get the House back? How do we get the House back? The Republicans are going, we already got the House. Now let's look at this. And so they just got out in front. And the lead on that was Tim Burchett. Now, there was those briefings that took place early on, and I think if I call there were a couple of Democratic members there of the panel that made a question or so forth. So it wasn't they were there, but the first person to go in front of cameras with millions of people watching, as far as I know, in a very aggressive way was Burchett. He just literally took the issue over, and he went on and made extremely strong statements that are strong in terms of the general public's understanding, but not strong in terms of my understanding or my colleagues by and large. He was just saying things we've known for decades, but he was saying them on News Nation and Fox. Namely, there's a non-human presence. We have non-human tech. We're not alone. And chastising the various entities for not getting this out. I mean, he just hit it hard. And overnight, he went from being a not particularly well-known member of the 435 member House to being a national figure and to some degree, even international figure. So then, not surprisingly, uh, and he was on the oversight committee, right? And so it shouldn't shock anybody that more stuff started coming out of the oversight committee of the House. Other people were watching Burchett uh, uh, go there and do well, and so they said, "Well, this is good. Let's also go there." And so before you know it, you've got that House hearing later in the year, that a House hearing in 2023, uh, following Burchett coming forward. They were on top of it. They were clearly on top of it, and so they got him. And they got that first hearing. This is an historic hearing. And everybody in it is going to be written up in a lot of books. And so you've got Grothman, you've got Comer, of course, was not there, but he's obviously the chair. And then the people that joined Burchett, uh, pretty much foremost, were Nancy Mace and Anna Paulina Luna. All right. Burleson less so. And so they hold that hearing, and that goes well. And so again, Everyone in that House Oversight Subcommittee was seeing some positive stuff. And to give you a perfect example of how the difference between these two, at the Grush hearing, in which Mace, Luna, Burchett pretty much dominated and asked the questions, so you had some others. There were two very, very important Democrats there, AOC and Jamie Raskin, Representative Raskin of the 8th District of Maryland. Many years ago, as an activist, I ran for that seat and got 1,700 votes. God bless every one of them. And of course, AOC is AOC, and they were there, and they sat all the way over to the right. Somebody said that was assigned seating. I have doubts. I think they could have moved over if they wanted to, but they were completely off to the right, looking at the audience, looking at Grush. And I watched, and I was curious how they would participate. Now, ultimately, they asked some fairly important questions. But it was clear that they were just kind of, I'm over here. What's going on here? When the other ones are diving in, asking amazing questions of Grush, who gave some extraordinary answers. I approached Raskin after and said I'd really love to meet with him. That just hasn't happened. I didn't bother to approach AOC because she's dealing with all kinds of stuff, and yeah, you got to pick your spots. But I'd love to talk to Representative Raskin. I think he's a great man. But again, he's not really gotten back into this. So that was a perfect example of this, the difference in the approach. And so as we move forward, the Republicans are still dominating in the House, but the Democrats are pretty much out in front in the Senate. So it's not imbalanced. But in terms of very strong statements, the strongest statements have come from Luna, Mace, and Burchett. The strongest statement that came out of the Dems was probably when Senator Rounds, Senator Schumer put in the record about a 10-minute statement not long after the first UAP Disclosure Act was essentially cut in half, and they took all the good stuff out, but they left the basics, right, which is actually law and things are happening. But they made a 10-minute statement, very strong, that they're not done. They're going to come back. They're disappointed that the bill didn't get passed. That was pretty strong stuff. Right into the record. It's up on the net, and I don't know how many people have seen it. I should check, but I'm sure it's been seen by a lot of people. It's on YouTube, of course, where the entire issue is completely covered. There's 10,000 videos, maybe 100,000. And again, this is in 1959, 69, 79. This is 2020s, and like there's thousands and thousands of interviews and statements and podcasts about all of this, and every single witness and person in it has got all kinds of interviews. God, I've got hundreds and hundreds of them. And so the idea that the truth embargo, no problem, no problem. We got it covered. It'll go away. It'll float away, right? The internet eventually is going to fade. Everybody will go back to virtual goggles and stuff and start playing Xbox, and they're not going to pay attention. No, not at all. The internet focus on this in every way possible, is only going to continue to grow. And God knows if TikTok really gets into it, it's over. Okay, you got influencers out there that have like, I don't know, 18 million followers, and they'll go on, hold up a picture of a UFO they shot, or talk about the experience when they were abducted when they were 14 or whatever the hell, and boom, it's going to blow up even more. That is the arena that we're in. And that's what I mean when I say that the managers of the truth embargo have already lost. They just don't know it yet. So they're not prepared to take down their flag. And they're also holding on, I think, because they're just not, they know they're not ready to face the music, and there is so much upheaval politically and internationally that some of them feel, look, let's don't rush this too much. Let's don't get too carried away because we got major things going on here, and so they're legitimately going, well, they're going to slow it down, but stop it? No, there has been a number of efforts to really try to blunt this issue, which is not shocking. And they started with Grush in 2023, and they've been about 4 or 5 instances where obviously people opposed to this truth getting to the American people have taken specific measures to try to knock it back. And just to give you a quick rundown of those, the letter from when Grush came forward, the letter that was put out by Sean Kirkpatrick attacking him, that's an example. The release of Grush's medical records to see if they could undermine his credibility. That's an example. All right. The Arrow study that was put forward later as things got even worse for them, which is a completely bogus report trying to shut it down. That is an example. Um, the recent Wall Street Journal article that was essentially delivered directly to them. In other words, the DoD said we have a bunch of inside people, top, ready to talk to your finest national security reporters and give you an important story. And so they went and talked to them. Of course they did. And there was a two-part thing was put in the Washington Post, and it's about 98% crap. And it's a joke. I mean, it's embarrassing. But it angered me because they knew that the nuclear shutdown witnesses were in play. I mean, I have put hard copies of their affidavits and witness statements in every office of the Senate Intel Committee and every subcommittee office of the House Oversight. And I've also given electronic copies. I've met with Mace. I've met with the Moskowitz's office and whatever. I mean, it's in play. I know, and I've met with Burleson, and he has the book, he has the video, he has the witness statements. He did not select. I don't think they're not going to be part of this next hearing. That's okay. They're going to have three witnesses, of course, two Air Force and one Navy. I'm sure they'll be interesting, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to like blow people away. But we'll see. The nuclear witnesses are the ones that must testify. There are a number of them, and their testimony will change everything. But the DoD is scared to death that this will happen, and so that was why they pushed back with the phony Wall Street Journal articles. I'm not saying that the author, Sheckman and Vishnawatha, knew it was false, knew they were being taken for a ride. I don't know that. I hope not. I don't know about the Wall Street Journal publishers or the owners, the Murdochs. I don't know. They may have fully known that they were kind of helping out the DoD. There'll be something from us down the line. I don't know, but that was a clear pushback, and so we've had that. But on the other hand, it's clear it's just not working. It's buying them a little time. It reduces the press coverage just a little bit, which is kind of low right now, given everything else is happening, obviously. But stop it? No. There's so many witnesses out there that could testify. It's amazing. We only know a fraction of the total witnesses that have come forward in one form or fashion. But what we do know is that all this craziness and what have you, and also the pushback that's taken place, uh, many of them are still not ready. I think they were heading that direction, but then things kind of turned for a bit, and they're not sure they're going to be well protected enough, and so they're a little hesitant. Others are maybe ready to go, but not the appropriate time. But history will show that from 2017 to 2026, a very large number of witnesses came forward to the Congress, congressional staff, media, podcasters, and probably all of them, with a few exceptions, were legitimate witnesses. So again, it can't hold up much longer, and who knows, it could end later this year for some reasons that I've been closely following.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the hearing because Eric Burleson assured us that they were only interested in bringing direct participants of the UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs forward at the next hearing. And that doesn't seem to be what we're getting. Now, I think it's possible they're not telling us all of the witnesses, and maybe they have somebody they're going to bring out at the last minute and they didn't want them scared off by revealing them too soon. I like to put that out there because it's optimistic. So, maybe we have some really juicy witness possibly coming forward. But as it stands right now, we only have these three witnesses. I think the Air Force gentleman did some sort of investigation into like five cases or something. So I'm kind of curious to see where that leads and what that information is. But are you any more optimistic about the next hearing than I am? Are you disappointed that it's not what we were promised? I understand the historical context that we're moving very fast and everything, comparatively. But are you bummed out by this, or are you? I think this is just the next step. What's your take?
Yeah, bummed out because we're going to have a third fully filmed.
Am I being spoiled, Steve?
Well, no, you are, as I said, as I was talking about earlier, you have immediate expectations. The thing is out, and you want to get it done, right? Done. And you're disappointed when it doesn't move as fast as it should. And that's fine. I don't mind that. I don't mind people being irritated by that. Okay. I mind it when they start attacking people because, well, you haven't delivered it to me the way I wanted it when I wanted it. But the way to think about Burleson's statement is this. You're talking to the coach before a football game, right? And it's a major game, very important, a lot at stake. And the coach says, well, look, we've got a plan, and we think we can get at least 2 scores in the first quarter. And people are going, hey, going to get 2 scores in the first quarter, right? No problem. And then, the game goes on and they don't score in the first quarter. Or maybe they just get a field goal. And what you're forgetting is that it is a football game. And so while this coach is trying to project optimism and give you a sense of what they might be able to do, there is another team trying to stop them. And so you have to understand this is it's not a game, but this is a tug of war between the entire disclosure process, all of the citizen researchers and activists and citizen journalists, as well as the mainstream journalists that have taken this on, as well as the political people and have taken it on. Everybody that is trying to get the truth. It is a tug of war with the entire military intelligence community, that portion of which is not ready to give us that truth, or at least acknowledge they have it so that the truth process would unfold. And so you can't guarantee anything. You can show what you would like to do, what you think you can do, and you may think you've got 2 witnesses, but then 2 weeks later they say, I can't, because this is a dynamic situation. What is important is we're going to get 3 more witnesses. And if they go well, that's going to make it easier for some other witnesses to take place. Now, the UAP Disclosure Act has some additional, I think, protections for witnesses that may help, right? If it gets passed in the House and the Senate, it's a whole new ballgame, right? So the they the circumstances are satisfactory, and we'll see how this hearing goes. And it's easy to understate everything so you won't disappoint anybody, but that is not the way to win this particular engagement. You've got to be strong. You've got to project strength. You've got to err on the side of, we got some great stuff here, even if maybe it doesn't happen. We've already spent most of the last 80 years pretty much with our head kind of hung down, going, we'll never get this. You'll never do it. No matter what we do, you push us back. We get a victory, then you shut it down. You got 70 years, and a lot of the people that went through that are dead now. So I get it, right? In other words, we need to get much more in a winning frame of mind. We are winning. And if I tend to overstate things a little too confident, I get criticized. I can live with that. But I suffer from a thing called headline writer syndrome. And any activist is going to generally deal with this. And if you do a lot of interviews, and I've done, oh, God knows, maybe 1,500, counting both print and video audio. If I say we could have disclosure possibly later this year, the headline writer, who is not the same as the journalists, the reporters don't write the headlines. That's a whole nother group. That's a whole nother team. And
I
so the
didn't know
headline
that.
will read, "We will have disclosure this year," right? And this happens all the time. So I'll project, look, this is a situation that's going to go on, and then the headline and in the Independent in the UK is, leading activist says we're going to have, disclosure by the end of the year. Now, that's happened many times, and I get it. I accept that. Because look, if the headline is a leading activist thinks we could have disclosure by the end of the year, that doesn't get enough eyeballs as a leading activist says we will have disclosure by the end of the
Yeah,
year.
will is a lot sexier than
Yeah.
could.
And that's why you got a lot of people out there calling the dates, right? I get it. I kind of like it in a way. You got a number of approaches from various people, pretty much playing out on X mostly, but it's been picked up by the press that a big thing is going to happen 2027, and then there's some stuff on 2026. And what can I say? wherever you're coming from, whatever your background, whatever's going on, you want to call the date, call the shot. It worked for Babe Ruth,
Well,
right?
what do you think
It's
about the
been
whole
proven that he called
2027?
that shot, nobody else that I know of has ever tried to do that in Major League Baseball, at least in a serious game. Nobody's ever done that. He did it. He got away with it. So, but you're going to get press. I don't do that. I have never done that. I may have gone, misspoken a time or two. God knows. I've done so many interviews when I got a little bit too certain, but I'm always trying to project not the battlefield, but project the road ahead. Is it good? Is it raining? Is the pavement dry? Is it 2 lane, 4 lane? Do we have an off ramp there that looks promising? That's what I try to do. But I'm always going to err on the side of optimism. You cannot be involved in a major activist movement and do otherwise.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. So I take it you're not going to call the shot on some mass event happening in 2026 or 2027. You know that story. No, not
Call
going
the
to go there.
shot, but I can make a case why 2027 looks really interesting.
Okay, okay, all right. Would you like to expound on that?
Well, yeah, I was wandering the Pentagon one day, and I went down the wrong hall, and there was a door open, and I just kind of stood next to the door, and it was like some major meeting going on. It was a bunch of high-level dudes with security clearances. I heard something. No,
Did you?
of course not. Um,
See, that would have made a great story. You should have just stopped right there.
look. I could create stories like that all day long, right? But once you go down that road, you can't come back, and so I just don't do that. And I think it's one of the reasons people still kind of pay attention to what I have to say, even after all these years. So here is a projection that I believe has a legitimate basis um, from the standpoint of some common sense and logical analysis, but that's it, right? Um, and that's as far as I can go. And here is the very short version of this. If you want the long version, I can do long version. And that is this. There is a reasonable case to be made that the current president of the United States knows enough, it's been briefed enough, and enough indications have turned up that he could very well step out in the White House in a somewhat formal way, or even go on Rogan and do it, and end the truth embargo. Basically say, yeah, I'm the president. I can confirm we got that non-human tech, got those non-human bodies. We're clearly not alone. You're going to know a lot more real soon, of course. And maybe they're from another dimension, maybe from the future, maybe they're from another star, wherever they're from. They didn't grow up in New Jersey and go to NYU or something. No. And that's disclosure. Boom, it's done. In other words, he's a disclosure president. And I think there's a reason you might see that because the political situation is getting really, really ugly and what am I say, impacting. There's a whole lot of people in this town and a lot of other towns, people that are powerful, wealthy, well known, who are facing down maybe the worst years of their life because the Epstein scandal is not trivial. It's massive, way more massive than the average citizen knows. But if you want to go read a lot of articles and get the basics and not just listen to what this spokesman is saying, it's a juggernaut. And a lot of people are going to go down with this ship. And so it's going to happen, I think. It's inevitable. However, disclosing the ET presence would be a huge temporary distraction and a divergent that would buy a lot of people time uh, to maybe, whatever, deal with what they got to deal with. But most importantly, it would give the president an enormous win. You know? And that's what they've been looking for recently. You can almost see a desperate sense they're trying to find a win because the political situations get pretty nasty. So when I say by win, that's He's the disclosure president. He's the great truth teller. He will be acknowledged throughout history. Other nations will follow very quickly, and so he won't be alone. Even when he's standing there, I mean, within a short amount of time, you're going to have almost all the nuclear nations are going to come forward and say, "Yeah, we got this, we got that. It's true." And we weren't ready to do it. We felt the U.S. should lead, whatever the hell. And he maybe even gets a Nobel Prize, whatever. So whatever goes down, he will have that forever. And so that is that's not a conjecture. I mean, that is a pretty logical possibility, and there's ample evidence indicating that it is under consideration. And so that's the first thing. So that would produce disclosure later in 2025. And then I have been saying for years that what happens next, and obviously the post-disclosure world happens, and all kinds of things will be going on, and my Lord, it'll be fun and games. I'm looking forward to it. But if you have some sense of the history of the ET presence in the modern era, going back to 47, particularly if you have had a chance to review a lot of the contactee reports, you have a good sense of the overall, how would you say, story that is being told by these contactees. And there really are contactees, and they really are being, quote, engaged, sometimes more comfortably than others. And you look at that, I believe open contact will follow. Um, and then the question is, okay, well, how long after disclosure? After the world is now fully aware we're not alone, got the confirmation, getting all kinds of information coming out, multiple countries learning this, learning that. It's the hottest topic in the world, and it will be. How long would it take? What would be a logical way to project open contact? As opposed to they just say, okay, now you know that you've agreed we're here, we're leaving now. We have other places to go, things to do. We may never come back. Good luck. I don't think so. That's not the way the history of this engagement has played out. And I'm basing it on the fact that how long would it take the planet, the entire planet, to get pretty much up to speed on this? Get a lot of information where even a regular person has a pretty good idea what's going on. Certainly all the governments, the scientific community, and the military and national security communities. How long would it take for them to pretty much, review all the evidence that's not been available, now is, have long discussions, huge numbers of meetings, go Zoom meetings, all kinds of meetings, hash it out, talk about it. How long? Well, it would have taken a long time back in 1965 or even 92, but this is 2025, and we have a massive, almost, we have a massive global, essentially free communication system connecting every living person on the planet with every other living person on the planet, sort of. Yeah, I mean, it's not that simple, but
More
it
or
is
less.
that. And so I think 2 years is it. I think 2 years, and we're up to our keister in awareness of this issue, and getting bored. Maybe it's like people, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I've heard about it for 2 years. I'm sick of it. I know this, I know that. 2 years is all we need to educate the planet. That's the learning curve I project. And therefore, once that planet is at that place, and given the nuclear connection with the ETs, which is a big deal, I think they show up. So I say show up, they go open contact. However, that takes place is less important than the fact it's open. It's not they're just talking to a couple of people in a skiff somewhere, nobody knows it. No, and they're open contact. 2 years. That puts open contact in 2027. And that is purely coincidental because I've been saying this for 20 years. And so if it had happened in 2019 or during the Clinton administration, 2020, 1995, we've been back then. But this thing is finally unfolding in 2025. It's really getting to a major point, and that puts it at 2027. So there you go. That's how I think and project on this. Now, some headline person is going to say, or somebody in X is going to say, Steve Massey says we're going to have open contact 2027. And probably
I'm
even
writing
say
the headline right
June the
now,
5th.
Steve.
What now?
I'm writing the headline right now.
Yeah, right the headline right. And I get, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that is the way I'm projecting and how I'm thinking. But obviously, I'm not going to put any money on it. Not that I have any money. I don't have any money. But if I had money, I'm not going to bet it. Right? Because that's obviously it's not a logical thing to do. But because there is a logical rationale for both the president coming forward this year and for open contact, if what I expect to happen after disclosure takes place, it's perfectly appropriate to project that, particularly when you're trying to keep people on board, putting pressure on the government or any government, right, to yield on this, right? Yield, right? Yielding, the yielding that I'm looking for is not complicated. All it means is the head of state says we're not alone. That's it. After that, obviously, a lot of things will happen that couldn't happen until they yield, but they have not yielded, obviously. And so that is the goal of the activist movement. They've got to acknowledge this, and then things will flow from there. And then the last thing I'll mention, if anybody in the White House is paying attention, happens to see this, here's the deal. If another head of state does this, pick one and come, but an important country, big country, yeah, not some small little Caribbean nation. If another head of state comes out, confirms it, presents some pretty impressive evidence, just to make the point, they're the disclosure president. They're the great truth teller, and they get the Pulitzer or the Nobel Prize. And any other president or a head of state is second or worse. And that's not the same thing. That's not
Not the
what,
same thing at all. You've got to
no.
get there first. Okay, now about Trump and UFOs. All right, are you aware of the Project Preserve Destiny information? What do you think
There,
about that? That these Italian journalists they found this information that Trump may have wrested some of the control away from the Pentagon of what I call the UFO control group, which you call the truth embargo, the people managing the UFO issue. That he has now put that under the purview of the executive branch. Now, I don't know why exactly he would do that or, what the implications of that are, but I would love your take on that. If you think there's could be any truth to that and what that might mean.
it is the nature of the times that a lot of stuff is coming out. Immaculate Constellation, Project Preserve Destiny. There's probably about five or six others if I'm really going to go check the net. Uh, they reflect, I think, again, this eager desire to get this thing done, to get the truth embargo over. But these kinds of things, uh, if they're not accompanied by a whole lot of strong evidence, including maybe firsthand testimony to the, I just have to kind of just go stay neutral, right? Maybe true, may not be true. Uh, and that's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of corroboration on that. And
No,
so I was also going to ask you a related question, and I think I know the answer to that as well. But do you think there could be a UFO connection to the Jeffrey Epstein story? I did a
no,
video about that showing some anecdotal evidence. There was a victim of Epstein that said he shapeshifted.
no.
There's
Oh,
various other anecdotal pieces of evidence to suggest there might be a UFO connection to that.
well, there's anecdotal and there's really anecdotal. I mean, there's anecdotal squared cube. No, that's there is as far as I mean, look, if in fact there's like thousands of videos of people doing whatever, and some of them might have been high level people and they might have been telling some person about this issue, but that's not a connection. I mean, that's just there's only one connection as far as I see, and it's a big connection. It's huge. And that is this is a big problem for a lot of people in power, wealthy, influential, prestigious. It's a big problem. And it's because it's so huge, it's been able to hold out this long. I mean, it got so big early on that the reason Epstein was able to hang in as long as he did is because so many big time people were involved that it was like, you know, uh, there was just a lot too much incentive to like do what is necessary, just keep it at bay, keep it at bay. Cheaper, low level scandals, now they just blow up, whatever. But this was of another level. I mean, this particular little affair is going to be featured in historical books as well as analysis for a long, long time. It is something else. And so the only connection is this. the timing of it, the timing of this thing breaking out, and all that's happened with respect to it. And there's a lot going on at any given time, I assure you. A lot of the top independent investigative journalists have plunged in. They're coming out with stuff. It's not going to stop. The timing of it is such that it might be the decision maker for the White House to take advantage, I guess take advantage of it, and use it as a way to mitigate uh, some of the serious issues they're going to have to face as the details get out. Unless they just burn everything, blow it all up, say we never had it, a few people jump out of the window, whatever. I mean, but that's going to create massive problems as well. I mean, there is no way to skate on this one, right? This is basically the reverse sequel to Eyes Wide Shut, right? This is Eyes Wide Kick Ass, and so that if it's the motivation that ultimately results in a president or a head of state, in this case, our head of state, ending the truth embargo, that is a huge connection. But it is serendipitous. But whatever, I'll take serendipity anytime. And I'll repeat, um, if the president does this, whatever goes down the line, I don't care what it is, he will be in a much better place, and he will have well, let me put it this way. It will be mitigated. In other words, he will have a huge number of people around the world indebted to him and extremely happy that he has done what no other president could do, 13 of them, and that's not going to hurt if you're dealing with other things. So I'm putting it out there. I did one podcast, it's up to 70,000 views. So and I don't normally get that many views. I think people are resonating on this. And then, of course, there is evidence for that this is being considered, and we can talk about that. I think I talked about that when we had our last, I think, interview, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
probably. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we did talk a little bit. We did talk about that. Okay, so one thing I was disappointed about was that Jake Barber wasn't going to come out, and testify before Congress, because I really wanted to enter his information into the congressional record because he talks about the metaphysical consciousness aspects of this.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before in our first interview. And I wanted to know your thoughts. Where are you currently at or on your thoughts of the phenomenon overall? And what is it? How do you interact with it? Do you go out and do CE5? Yeah, what is your take? Where are you at currently on your thoughts regarding the phenomenon, consciousness, and the whole ball of wax?
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
In five
Uh,
minutes.
yeah, I mean, I've been out a couple times. I mean, I went out on one of Greer's events. I went out to Gillen Ranch and I think it was up in Connecticut or something, and I kind of went. But I mean, it was just kind of incidental. It wasn't a big deal, and I just don't do this by and large. Um, so the thing that people need to keep in mind is that right now, the witness testimony is not about getting all the information out. In other words, we're all going to learn what's going on by what these witnesses are going to say in front of the hearing. That's not why we're having those hearings, and that's not what they're about. These hearings and the witnesses coming forward are about getting to where the president can confirm. It's building a platform on which to stand. No president really has had that platform. Uh, uh, Carter, President Carter didn't have it when he decided to go into this. He didn't have that platform. He shut down. Uh, Clinton, I think, had a little more platform, not much, but some. And there was the resources were there to possibly build it out, but it was still too early. He didn't have it. The current president is the first one to have a platform, a real platform. Uh, 8 or 9 hearings, and three of which are quite robust as of September 9. Witnesses coming forward. 4 years of legislation with one major bill still possibly to be passed. Massive amounts of media coverage, 7,000 articles triaged on my website. I get 7,000 up there from, the fluff, right? These are professional articles, 7,000, uh, covering every aspect of this since 2017. Then, of course, the internet embracing it. X is all over it. Um, all of this it comes together in I call a platform. So that if a president steps out onto that and says we're not alone, most people are going, "Oh, fantastic." Not like, "Oh, you got to be crazy." Or what? Where did that come from? What's going on? Are you off your meds? No. They're going to go, "Thank you. We knew it, right? We were pretty sure, but thank you." So he has that platform. It's the first one. And these witnesses are about getting to that, right? I assure you, after disclosure, after the confirmation event, there will be hearings that will go on for years, uh, more in their first year than the second, in which a lot of people will testify as the government reasserts proper oversight over the biggest issue in history. There'll be plenty. So we'll learn from that. We'll learn from these hearings. And so forth. And but that will be accompanied by the disclosure process or the UAP Disclosure Act, a small d disclosure process in which things are then being delivered to the review panel, either postponed or put forward, and a whole body of evidence is accumulating in the archives and elsewhere. And that's going to generate a huge amount of interest as well. But I assure you, the idea that we're going to hold all these hearings, these hearings are going to some tell no, and we don't know about that. We want to know about this. Let me tell you something else. You're not going to have a hearing where a contactee is going to testify under oath before disclosure. It's not going to happen. I'd be stunned. Are there contactees out there that could testify? Even people that work for NASA or the Air Force or the CIA? Yeah, doesn't have to be just a regular old citizen, right? Who would probably be pretty intimidated. You got some high level people that are contactees. That's not going to happen because that's not necessary to get disclosure. And in fact, probably even makes it a little harder as it takes the politicians into an even more complex, esoteric area. And that's not necessary, right? We don't need to go there yet. Is it fair? No. But if we get disclosure, all of the contactees are going to have their day. And any of them that have something meaningful are going to be heard. And we will have hearings for that. And so that's the thing. This isn't the government already knows that the ETs are here. They've known it for at least 80 years, maybe longer. All of this that you've been watching, hearings and setting up Arrow and the task force and all of this stuff has nothing to do with the government trying to figure this out. Yeah. And have a witness come in, testify under oath. Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, this is how I'm going to learn about this. No. Anybody inside that's connected knows that, of course, the government knows completely. So what is this all about? It's about ending the truth embargo. It's about getting to a place where a president can, in fact, put an end to this thing, right? The truth embargo, the basic embargo, right? Which is we are being visited. We aren't alone. And now let's proceed forward with that. And of course, it'll be formalized by almost every major government. And so the whole world will be in the post-disclosure era. That is what this is about. But the problem that the government faced as they proceeded to try to finish out this platform is that they couldn't say that. They couldn't say, we need a UAP task force because the ETs are here. We need to have some witnesses come in and talk about this because the ETs are here. We need to set up Arrow because the ETs are here. They can't do that because that's disclosure, essentially. And you can't do that yet. So they're in this very strange position where they have to set all this stuff up, but they can't give you the actual truth as to why they're doing it, but there is a legitimate reason. Now, if things had moved quicker, in other words, if things had moved much more robustly, it wouldn't have been so tough. But circumstances in the world have just stretched it out. When the group came forward in 2017 and those articles were sent into the New York Times and got published, we could have been on a pretty fast track, possibly. But then all kinds of stuff started happening, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And so it dragged it out, which means that this kind of catch-22 they're in has just been stretched and stretched to the limit. So every extra year it takes, people's frustration with this kind of odd situation we're in where, wait a minute, why well, put it this way, people that know a lot know why in the hell are you doing that? Why are you doing this? You already know this. You already know that. What is going on here? It's very irritating, and the public's confused because they go online or they talk to or they watch podcasts like this one or countless others. They hear all these people talking matter of factly about, yeah, there's ETs here, there's non-human tech here, this crash happened, this happened, this happened, and the government is going, well, we don't know anything yet, but we're. It's very irritating.
Yeah, it's
What
kind of
can
like
I
they're
say?
they're holding this can of worms in their hand, but they can't admit it's a can of worms, let alone open it. But they're kind of probing it and saying, "Oh, this is metallic, it may be round." That's kind of where we are right now. That's my analogy anyway. But
Pretty much it. They can't. So many people. Well, the number of people now that know it's real is huge. But for most of the last 80 years, the government got away with saying it's not even real. But now they know it's real. Okay. So that's no longer an issue at all. And so now that everybody knows it's real, then they expect the government to do something about it. Right. And it's got to do something about it. But we're way past the point where they can start up another blue book and play that for a number of years and it's just basically a front deal and bogus stuff just to keep us pleased. No, we're way past that. And so they have to do something. And what appropriately they have to do is set up the president to disclose. We've had high level people say there's ETs here. High level people in the DIA, the CIA, astronauts, pilots, high level people in the British government. I mean, there's a whole list of people that basically said there's ETs here. Did that suddenly trigger the post disclosure world? No, it didn't. It's got to come from the head of state.
yeah, it
Could come
does.
from the Vatican, but I don't think they'll go there. UN, probably not. The UN is now so diminished, nobody cares. Um, and frankly, if the UN were to do it, I think the United States would probably just tear the building down and tell them, relocate somewhere else, the Antarctic, wherever. So it's going to come from a head of state. It'll probably be the president, but the time is running out to make that decision.
Well, here's hoping something gives, man, because I think you're right. Something's got to give, and disclosure is not an event; it's a process. And you're right. If we can get the UAPDA passed, we can get some whistleblower protections put in. Maybe over time, as these hearings go on, and we get witness after witness after witness over the years, and we get better protections, we can get better witnesses, or witnesses that may be closer in. And I'm probably putting words in your mouth there, but I think that. Yeah, it's a process, and things are going to get better as we go forward. But thank you very much for spending some time with us today, giving us your thoughts. What are you working on now, and where can people find you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, by the way, not years. Yeah,
Not years. Okay, okay.
it's inconceivable to me that the truth embargo lasts years. I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, if we have a nuclear war, that would definitely probably prevent it, I
It
guess.
it
I don't
does.
know.
It feels like something's got to give, right?
Oh yeah, no, 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 no. It does. You have to be a genius to know that we're at a place where it just can't hold much longer. But years, no, unless something profound really intervenes. I mean, an asteroid impact, a really bad pandemic where, maybe 2, 3 billion died. That might put it off. Don't know, but otherwise, no, it's coming. So let's see. Right now, uh, in terms of PRG, anticipating that we were getting close to the finish line, I did something that I could have done sooner, but I converted PRG to a nonprofit, so it's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. So okay, good. I can get tax deductible donations for the first time. And I'm trying to do that. I've got a donate thing up on my top page at paradigmresearchgroup.org. And again, I don't have much money. I never sold merch. I've never put up a paywall. I'm never going to. It's donations, and so I'm always operating from a pretty small bank account. But if I can get some serious funding in the 20-25,000 range, I can launch another conference. It'll be the X conference 2026. So that's my number one project. Obviously, I'm still going to help out with this contact in the desert, which I'm sure is going to be a pretty big deal next year, without question. And that's of course in Indian Wells in California.
Yeah, I'm hoping to go to the next one. Maybe I'll run into you.
Well, of course, I mean, given what could happen between now and then, you definitely want to get the early bird ticket and get your hotel room and stuff because it could be huge, right? Massive. I'm also doing anything I can to help the New Paradigm Institute, which is really leading the activist. It has resources and staff and so forth to do projects I cannot do, but it's leading the pack in terms of the activism, I think. And so I'm always supporting that. I'm helping with another major project called the State of the World Forum, which is up on the website, stateoftheworld.forum. I didn't know that was a what do you call it? A domain, but apparently it is. Anyway, stateoftheworld.forum is a significant project. We'll see how that goes, but I'm helping with that. And I'm about to do a lot of podcasts. I kind of step back, but I'm about to send out a blast. I'm probably gonna end up doing 100 podcasts by
Dang.
the end of the year,
I hope you're
right?
stocked up on coffee.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to speak at Exeter Festival coming on up this weekend up in New Hampshire. First time. That's kind of cool. Um, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which I co-founded with Dan Harari in LA,
And of
is,
which I am a member,
and you remember, it's
a
making
founding
progress.
member.
200 and some members. We're having an event at the Whitefire Theater on September 14. Going to show a film, have some chats, and that's in Sherman Oaks. So I'll be there for that. I'll be in LA for about a week if somebody wants to get together or talk about a media project. Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is a free networking entity to get film people together with UAP people to make good stuff, great stuff. Because the demand for that kind of stuff is only going to explode. There's plenty being done now. The docs accumulate, but boy, it's going to get really intense. More and hopefully more major projects, more money, more research and so forth, which is hard to do when you in during the truth embargo, right? But as we move forward, that'll improve. So I got that involved with that, and I'm starting to put out the word to my supporters through social media around the world that I think it's time to do another speaking tour of Europe. I've done two, or was it three? I did a big one, a medium one, and a small one. Uh, and I think I've done like 20 countries. And to let them know that I'm open to do this. Now, why that way? The way it works really well is if a savvy supporter of the PRG in a country can get a venue together, right? Do the promo, whatever, establish for a speaking event. And then we can add that to the list, and then at some point organize it so that it makes sense. You're not crisscrossing Europe and build up a tour of 10, 15, 16 cities. So I'm just starting to get that out there, and I think one supporter has indicated he's happy to set up in two cities in Portugal. But eventually, I hope to get all that together and for next year, uh, anticipating that a lot's going to happen, and if I can get these things set up, it could be pretty good timing, right?
Well, that sounds very exciting, Steve.
So that's kind of what I'm up to right now.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Keep podcasting, my friend. We're going to win, and the podcasters will receive accolades and great rewards for being part of this movement.